Welcome to our quick tip video series. For this session, we're going to talk about how to tackle the future when the present feels so uncertain. As we're working with a lot of our clients, one of the hardest things is how do we start to plan for the future when we're not sure what's going to happen 5 minutes from now? We're going to start with this quote: "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams," by Eleanor Roosevelt, one of our former first ladies. And this is something that I think really is critical as we've worked with some of you and started to plan for what you can do moving forward. A big question that comes up is, does it even make sense to think about what we're doing a year from now when, like I said, we don't know what we're going to do tomorrow? And it actually is one of the most critical times to be thinking about our dreams or what we want to accomplish, because if not, where it's very easy to get sucked into being reactive versus proactive, especially during stressful times like this. And as we understand, this isn't about ignoring the current circumstances, but it's also about not getting drowned in them. So how do we do that? And if you see here, you've got a sailboat in the ocean, and this is kind of the analogy that we use quite often is, you're out there, and the whole point of a sailboat is to sail somewhere, and you want to know where that is. And if you don't, then it's just the ocean batting you around and being reactive. And of course, the ocean can be raging and storming and unpredictable. It also is the energy, the waves are the energy, and the current's the energy that moves the sailboat, and the wind that works with that. So all those things, all those factors is what help you get where you need to be. So it's not about now all of a sudden there's circumstances that we can't think about the future. It's that we just have to consider how are we going to navigate these circumstances to get where we want to go. So, we always like to ask, who's good at change? So, raise your hand in wherever you're at in your car, driving, listening to this, or with your family or your team. And if you think you're good at change, go ahead and raise your hand. And you know what? I used to think I was amazing at change. I was this person who really liked to jump from one thing to the next and didn't like to stay anywhere too long. Always loved doing something different than I've done before. And back after 9/11, I had been laid off. And I was a person at that time. I was in my mid-20s, and I was quitting a job. I was being this idea of being a millennial and changing jobs on a regular basis way before it was cool. And friends were worried about me, and I just, oh well, I'm carving out my career. And then all of a sudden I got laid off, and I found myself thinking, wait a minute, I didn't ask for this. And my friends were like, well, you've been there almost 2 years. Weren't you ready to quit? And I was like, well, yeah, but I didn't decide it. Someone else decided it for me. And all of a sudden I realized we're actually all pretty bad at change we didn't pick. I love the butterfly and caterpillar analogy because people always use that as a change. And I got to imagine that the caterpillars probably, if they are able to have the sense of what was going on, to get into a cocoon, to lose all kinds of weight, to grow these wings and change into this completely different creature, cannot be all that comfortable for them. So I got to imagine that their first experience of it is a little bit of like, hey, I didn't know this is what I was signing up for. And so a lot of this change that's happening right now, I don't know anyone who picked it. And so there's a level of, probably that's where that feeling of unsettledness comes from. When we see changes happen that we go along with and we're actually really great with, a lot of that comes from us feeling like the changes are aligned with our value system. It's when changes happen that don't align with that really kind of set us off kilter. And so the process of change is usually messy. And I stick with this butterfly analogy because I think Mother Nature came up with the cocoon for good reasons. It is messy. Nature even just kind of guards it. It's also kind of fragile. So as we're going through that change process, it's not always so easy and so light. And so as people are working remotely, as your teams and your businesses are figuring out how they're navigating this, you want to make sure that you're being thoughtful and kind with everybody, but also we want to be able to set them on a course that feels like they have some semblance of control around the decisions that they're making. So why don't we do that? Why aren't we good at navigating uncertainty and coming up with a new future and a path and really responding to change? Because there's some of us, and all of us have some level of this, but we've been groomed to be really good at farming in the sense of maintaining and growing the crops that we've always grown. And so as businesses and as workers, we're really good at being experts at what we're doing and kind of cultivating that. This idea of going out and hunting for things is not always the most comfortable for us. And so, going out in front of the change and finding what's out there, what might be happening, how do we create something that doesn't exist? That's that proactiveness. The farming is a little bit more, and this is by no means a description of what farmers actually do, but that farming mentality of I'm just kind of retilling the things that I've always done. And really what makes us good at business is a balance of both. How do we know when to hunt? How do we know when to farm? But a lot of us have gotten into a place where we over rely on the farming. And when things come along that are unpredictable, our hunting skills are a little bit off. And it feels, going out into the uncertain and not knowing what might be out there feels so scary to us. When in reality, it's something that we're more than capable of handling. It's really just getting back that skill of hunting. And so the other side of it is the reason that we're not always so good at kind of laying out what that future is and being proactive about it is we tend to prefer to fight fires. Fires are tangible. The things that are cropping up right now, let me tackle that. Even if they're big and scary, like what's going on right now can be very big and scary for people. I at least want to, fight the devil that I know versus the one that I don't, because there's certainty to it. It's tangible. If I put that fire out, I can feel good about it. Whereas, imagine a future that doesn't exist. What's amazing is as children, we were really good at this. All of us have this capability, but somewhere along the lines, we were told that this is childlike thinking, that it's not being realistic, but it's actually a large part of what sets us up to be successful and being able to kind of carve out our future and our path versus simply reacting to everything that's happening to us. It's just the capacity to imagine, and not just imagine the horrors that might happen. I don't know a lot of kids who, let's say at the age of 5 or 6, that are imagining all the horrible bad things, but a lot of times their imagination goes to all the things that they would want. What do they want to see happen? And kind of tapping into your brain to do that again. And if we don't set sail to a destination ourselves, the ocean of change will set one for us. And so it's, I did this exercise one time with a team and they were looking to reinvent themselves. It was a PR team. And when I asked them to imagine, if they were guaranteed success, what would they do in the coming year? And their leader said, well, that's ridiculous. We can't possibly predict the coming year. Let's stick to the next 90 days. And, so I thought that was great. And I kind of chuckled and I said that you can't predict the next 90 days. And if current events teach us anything, that's very true. Just a week ago, I'm sure a lot of us couldn't even possibly imagine what's going on right now. And so it's this exercise isn't about controlling the future as much as it is setting some sort of direction and being proactive. So step one, take some time, brainstorm what success would look like a year from now, and allow yourself to not caveat it with, well, that's if this happens, or but that probably won't happen if this occurs. Really let go of that adult tendency to want to look really smart and certain about things. Tap into that childlike capability that your brain has to just go, this is what I want. And I'm not going to really spend any time entertaining whether that's possible or not. I'm just going to really cultivate in my head what it is that I want. Do that with your team. Do a, no challenge zone of, we're guaranteed success a year from now. What would we produce? What would that look like? What are the things that we would see? How would the environment be different? How would the company be different by us doing that? Do it with your family. Just that practice in being optimistic and hopeful and allowing yourself the permission to even want what you want. Next, step 2 is don't worry. Now we get to do the so-called adult thing and assess the current challenges and opportunities based on where you are trying to go. So, what's interesting is a lot of times that when we're working with clients and they're doing strategies, their first step is, let me assess the current reality, because that feels where things are grounded. And then they make a plan based off of that. And what that does is it's a plan around how to make things a little less bad than what they are right now. And that's not really about achieving the things that you want. You tend to focus more on putting more and more fires out versus creating a world that doesn't exist right now, or creating a process or procedure or experience that people aren't having. So when you take step 1 and you actually imagine what you want and you come up with what you want to be able to achieve so that you feel good next year, you feel proud, you're passionate, you're willing to fight the good fight to make that happen. When you go to step 2 and you're assessing current situations, you're not just doing it in this open vat of what's coming at me. You're doing it from a strategic place of what am I trying to achieve? And what in my current environment is working for me and what's working against me. And so that's a much more proactive way of assessing your current state. Finally, step 3 is how do we navigate the storm and calm seas ahead? And so what are those steps that we can take? And right now it might feel like, well, I don't know what steps I can take because I don't know what's going to happen next week or what's going on with situations. And so instead go, well, what do I think are some core milestones that we should focus on making happen if we want to get where we want to get? And then you can even take it to a sub plan where it's like, okay, let's take a time frame that we're comfortable really kind of committing to. And that might be, in this circumstances, it might be a week. So for this week, what are we going to commit to making happen? For the next month, I like to do a 90-day time frame in normal circumstances. In these circumstances, I probably do a 2-week time frame of what do we want to accomplish this week? What do we want to accomplish the next week? And putting some commitment and action towards it. You'll notice that for yourself and your team members, that it gives them something to focus on. And you're drafting a plan based off of what are the things we know for sure we can impact, we have control over, we can take action towards. In circumstances like this, that might be, let's do some upskill training. Let's spend this time to really kind of research and understand our client base more. Let's do some reach out to our clients and understand where they are and things. Let's take the time to have some of those preventative meetings that we don't always have, or take care of some of the extra work that feels like we don't have time to really sit, or spend time brainstorming creative ideas, because that's the number one thing that I hear from clients is we just don't have time to sit down and brainstorm. And you might actually have that time to do that now. But if you're so stressed about what's going on, it's really hard to sit and entertain what's possible. And I find a lot of people will react with, I don't want to use this time senselessly. And if I don't want to just brainstorm things that aren't going to end up to be anything. And I always come back with, if you, and I'm going to go back to this slide here, and we're going to close with this. If we do not set the sail to a destination ourselves, the ocean of change will set one for us. And with the circumstances, the way things are going right now, it's easy for what's going to be set to not necessarily be the path that you want to be on. So be proactive, do the brainstorm activity, assess current state based on that, and then draft a plan. Some books that could really be helpful, and I've referenced some of the things that the farming and that type of thing from some of the authors here. Create the Future by Jerry Guccier. Him and his organization have a lot of stuff around this. Exploiting Chaos is another one from his organization. Better and Faster is not on here, but that's one of his books. He's got a lot of great videos out there. A good one to kind of spend some time around. The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson really starts to tackle how do you create psychological safety so that people feel comfortable really, focusing on the future and not getting too caught up with everything coming at them. And then Uncertainty by Jonathan Fields, and just that idea of how to turn fear and doubt into fuel for brilliance. And it's really about creating the environments that we want. As always, we are here to help. Feel free to forward this video to anyone that you think is helpful. Also, please reach out to us at theexecutiveadvisory.com, or our phone number is right there below it. Joe, Evelyn, Veronica, Jerry, and myself, we are ready, and Amy as well, are ready and willing to help. So please reach out to us, and here's to us all having a proactive and productive future.